share sorted out? Sorry for the delay. Don't know why it does this. There we go. Okay, sorry for the delay. So the last chapter of this section about holy sacrifices that go wrong. Still pretty technical. I wish I was doing tomorrow's, which is the laws of Yom Kippur, which is much more interesting and sort of relevant for our times, even though much of it is to do with the temple, but it's much more interesting, not as technical as today, but that's the luck of the draw, so you get what you get. So, chapter 19, and in preparing this, I had to teach myself a couple of things that I didn't know about this subject, and I look forward to sharing it with you. So it is a positive commandment, mitzvahs aseh lisroif kol hakochim, to burn all the sacrifices that have become tomei. The sacrifice becomes impure. The verse states explicitly, the meat that will touch anything that departs from it may not be eaten, and it must be burnt with fire. Other things that have to be burned is notar. Noiser, notar, that is food which is left over, sacrificial meats that have gone beyond their allotted time to be eaten. You will know that the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb, for example, we have to eat by midnight. That's when we have the Afikoimen before midnight, or latest till the morning. Other offerings, we had this last week, go for a day or 2 days. But if you did not consume it all and the time allocation is over, and there's still meat around, it is called notar, left over, and it has to be burnt. Included in that would be pigul. By now you should know what pigul means, I'm sure, right? Pigul is if when the person offering, the Kohen offering it, or maybe the owners as well, have in mind that it will be eaten in the wrong place or in the wrong time, then it is disqualified. And that too would have to be burnt. So similarly, all other sacrifices that were disqualified must be burnt. Number 2, when a sacrifice becomes pigul or is otherwise disqualified, it should be burnt where? In the temple. In the temple precincts, immediately. Wherever there's a doubt whether it's been disqualified, and you're not sure, you can't eat it because it might be disqualified. You're not sure you should burn it if it's not disqualified. There's a doubt. So what does he say to do? You wait until the next day. By the next day, it has become fraught or inedible, and then for sure you could burn it. 3, there is an unresolved doubt with regard to the bulls and the goats which are to be burnt. Leaving them. Sorry?
What?
What's going on?
Because there's no indication on the control pad that it's out.
Whoever's talking there, you should mute yourself. Okay. There is an unresolved doubt with regard to the bulls and the goats which are to be burnt, whether leaving them overnight or taking them outside the temple courtyard before the time to take them out disqualifies their meat, as it would their fats and organs, or it does not disqualify the meat. We're not sure. There's a halachic doubt, different opinions. Therefore, as a stringency to make sure, it's considered as if they were disqualified and they should be burnt in the temple courtyard just in case. We'll learn later that the holier the meat is, there's different levels of holiness. I'll explain that just now. You probably did come across it already, but I'll do it anyway. Kodshe kodshim, holy of holies meat, and kodshim kalim, lesser holiness meats. So I'll go over what the difference is just now. Certain things were burnt in the temple courtyard. Some things could be burnt outside. Another unresolved doubt is if half such an animal was taken out, including the majority of one whole limb. Also a doubt. Therefore, as a stringency, it is considered disqualified and should be burned in the temple courtyard. Similarly, if 5 people carried such an animal taken outside the temple courtyard, and 3 left the courtyard and 2 remained, but the 3 to left removed half of the animal. Such animals are disqualified because of the doubt, and they should be burnt in the temple courtyard. Says the Rambam, he weighs in his own opinion here, which is interesting. It appears to me, this is the Rambam writing, that in such instances, it is not necessary to wait in the following day, like we said before. The rationale being that regardless, such animals will definitely be burned, even if they're not disqualified, so you don't have to wait. Number 4, if meat is found in the temple courtyard, now you're not sure what it comes from, what kind of sacrifice, and different sacrifices have different rules. So whole limbs are to be considered as parts of burnt offerings, which are stricter. Pieces of meat, not whole limbs, are considered as parts of sin offerings. Pieces of meat which are found in Jerusalem outside the temple are considered as parts of peace offerings. So here's 3 different types of korbanos. Korban ola, a burnt offering. Korban chatas, a sin offering. korban shlomim, a peace offering. Everything should be left until the following day and then taken out to the place where sacrifices are burnt, lest it become notar, because we're not sure when it was shechted and it may well be past the time. One might ask, if so, of what benefit will it be that it be considered as part of a burnt offering, sin offering, or peace offering? You're burning it anyway. What's the difference? To define the law for one who transgressed and partook of it. So if somebody ate it, which he should not have done, then depending on which type of offering it was, his atonement will be different. So let me see if I try to. Yeah, let me see. Give me a second. Here. Can you see this or not? I put something up on the screen. Can you see it? The differences between Kochim, Kochim, and Kochim column. You able to see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, so look at the footnotes. Number one, in the category of Kochim Kochim, Holy of Holies, are Ola, the burnt offering, Chatas, the sin offering, Asham, a guilt offering, Shalmei Tzibur, communal peace offerings, and Menachos, libations. In the category of Kochim Kalim, the lesser degree holiness offerings, Shalmei Yochid, a personal peace offering of an individual, Thanksgiving offerings, the firstborn, Meiser, and the Korban Pesach. And here he gives you that different ones. Kochim Kochim are shechted in one part, more strict where it is. The time period eating it is less, a day and a night as opposed to 2 days and a night. The place for eating it in the courtyard or in all of Jerusalem. Who may eat it? Only the Kohanim or Kohanim and Israelites. Who gets to hide? The Kohanim or the owners of the Korban. So that's these are the differences between Kochim Kochim and Kochim Kalim. Resume share. Now I lost the Rambam. I put on the other things. I lost the Rambam. Where is it? Sorry. As you can see, I'm not a fundi in these things. Let's get back to Rambam. Sorry. Give me a moment. No. Yeah. My apologies. Says I'm screen sharing, but where is it? Oh. Okay. We're back. By number 5, I think, huh? Oh, notar, the end of number 4. Notar is burnt only during the day. 5. Although peace offerings excuse me, are forbidden to be eaten from the beginning of the night of the third day. The remainder is only burnt during the day. Similarly, pigul is burnt during the day. So this is an important thing. I think it'll be one of the quiz questions later. That notar and pigul are only burnt during the day. Burning sacrificial meat that became tomei, notar, or pigul does not supersede the prohibitions against forbidden labor on festivals. Needless to say, it does not forbid against work on the Shabbos, which means, another quiz question here, may you burn these things on Shabbos and Yom Tov? The answer is no. 6. When the meat of a sacrifice of the most sacred, kodshe kodshim, right? We said, burnt offering, sin offering, guilt offering, became impure in the temple courtyard, it should be burnt in the temple courtyard. If it became impure outside the temple courtyard, it should be burnt outside. That's whether it became impure because of a primary source of tumah or a derivative of tumah. So when we learned tumah, we did tumah, right? So there's the corpse is the mother of all tumas, or the grandfather of all tumas to be exact. Then there's rishon, sheni, different levels of tumah, so it makes no difference as far as this is concerned. The Kehanim never refrained from burning meat that contracted impurity from a primary source of impurity, and thus it is defined as impure to the first degree, rishon, with meat that contracted impurity, derivative of impurity, a tolda, even though this would increase the, so it makes no difference what degree of tumah it is. If it's tumah, it has to be burnt. Moreover, even oil that became impure because it touched a person who immersed on that day, in many cases, a person goes to the mikveh during the day, but he has to wait until nightfall to become tahor. He's already been to the mikveh, but he hasn't yet nightfall hasn't come yet, and he touched something. Certain times he will make it tomei by his contact. So even oil that became impure because it touched a person who had already immersed on that day, but the night hadn't yet come to make him completely pure. So that's a third degree impurity, a very minor level of tumah. So that oil is permitted to be burnt in a metal lamp that was touched by a person who was impure because of contact with a human corpse, in which instances the lamp is a primary source of impurity. So you could burn together a primary source and the third level together. Even though you're going to make the oil more tomei, it's tomei to the third degree. Now it's going to become tomei to the first degree. But once it's tomei, we don't really care. 7. Nota, leftover sacrifices of a lesser degree of holiness should be burnt by the persons bringing the sacrifices in their home. So that, if it's the lesser sacrifices, like a peace offering, it does not have to be burnt in the temple courtyard. 8. So the guy's already left Jerusalem, and he remembers that he has sacrificial meat in his knapsack, in his vacuum-packed bag on his in his knapsack. If he already passed Mount Scopus, he should burn it. He should burn it right there and then wherever he is. If not, and it's the size of a kezias, he should return and burn it inside Jerusalem. If he's a guest, he's a visitor, a pilgrim, doesn't have a home, he should burn it before the temple with wood designated for the arrangements of wood of the altar. So there's wood there in the temple, he could use that to burn it. 9. The bones of the sacrifices that do not have marrow need not be burnt, except for the Korban Pesach. We already explained that when a sacrifice was disqualified after it was skinned, so they already skinned the animal, now they found out that there's something went wrong. Then its hide should be given to the kohanim or to the owners, if it's sacrifices of kodshe kalim of lesser degrees. If, however, it was disqualified before it was skinned, the hide is considered as the meat and should be burnt together with the meat. Similarly, if a sacrifice was skinned and then it was discovered to be treifa, treifa means that they discovered that maybe the lung was perforated or something, that it had a terminal illness from which it would not live for a year, or it was disqualified because of improper thoughts concerning time or place, what we call pigul. Since the sacrifice is not acceptable, the hide should be burnt. This applies whether to the highest degree of sanctity or lesser degree, koche kochim, kochim kalim, to both of them. If, however, a sacrifice was offered for the sake of a different intent, okay, he had the wrong thoughts in his mind, even though the obligation of the owners was not fulfilled, he's going to have to bring over another sacrifice. Oh, no, he won't, sorry. Since his, let me see what he says here. 45. See chapter 15, halacha 1. Okay. So you taught me a trick to go quickly. Now, how do I get back? Any more tricks? Or I have to scroll up?
Yeah.
You have to scroll up.
Have to scroll up, okay.
When you hold your cursor over the number, don't press, because that takes you to the note. Just hold it over and you can read the note.
Ah. So what? But then I let go and it went down. Hold it. Without pressing. Is that what you're saying? Hold it without pressing.
Correct.
Let's see what happens there. Oh, excellent. Oh, now I got it. My mentor and teacher. Thank you. Okay. So, if, however, the sacrifice was for the sake of different intent, even though the obligation of the owners was not fulfilled, since it's unacceptable, the hide is given to the priest or the owners, as explained above. Sorry, let me just get rid of that phone call. And put my phone on silent. Thank you. This applies highest degree or lower degree. If, however, a sacrifice was offered for the sake of a different intent, even though the obligation of the owners was not fulfilled, since it's acceptable, the hide is given to the priest of the owner or the owners. When a sacrifice was skinned before the blood was cast on the altar and the sacrifice was done, and the hide is not disqualified. So there are times when even if the animal is disqualified, the hide still may be used by the Kohanim or the owners. 10. These are the entities that should be burnt. Sacrificial meat that became tomei, nosar, or disqualified for whatever reason. Even a meal offering that became impure, notar, or was disqualified. A conditional guilt offering, it's called osham tolui. In an instance when it became known to the transgressor that he definitely did not sin, so he wasn't sure if he sinned. Then he found out that he did not sin before the blood was cast on the altar. A sin offering of fowl that is brought because of a doubt whether he sinned. The hair of a Nazirite who is ritually pure. A Nazir, when he finishes his time of being a Nazirite, has to have cut his hair. And you know what they do with the hair? They don't sell it to the ladies who make shaitels. You have to burn it. And produce that is orlo, that means fruit of a tree the first 3 years, which you're not supposed to eat. Or kilai hakerem, that is if you planted wheat in a vineyard together, which you're not allowed to do. All of the above, what does he say? All of the above have to be burnt. Now, what about some of these things that cannot be burnt? For example, liquids that are orlo or kilai hakerem should be buried. 11. Which things should be buried? We've been speaking about things that have to be burnt. Now certain things have to be buried. Sacred animals that died. Whether they were consecrated to be offered on the altar and then they died before that, or for the sake of the temple treasury. When sacred animals miscarry and discharge a fetus or a placenta, that too should be buried. An ox that is stoned to death, shoir hanisko, You know, the halacha is if an ox kills a person, the ox is put to death. I don't know if he gets a trial by a beth din or a jury, but he's put to death. A calf whose neck is broken. Towards the end of the Vodim, we read about Eglo Arufa. Just this past Shabbos, Yosef sent the wagons to his father Jacob as a reminder that he still remembered the last shir he learned with him when he was 17 years old was about Eglo Arufa. Eglo and Agola is the same word as wagons. So that calf is used as atonement, its neck is broken. Or the fowl used to purify a person who's coming out of tzoras, or the hair of a Nazarite who became impure also has to be cut and burnt. Oh no, here he says it's buried, sorry. When he finishes, it's burnt, but if it became impure in the middle, then it's buried. A firstborn donkey which was not redeemed. You know that the donkey is the only animal that's not kosher where the firstborn goes to the Kohen. So you redeem it with a sheep or something. If you didn't redeem it, then it has to be buried. A mixture of milk and meat. You took kosher milk, kosher cheese, and kosher meat, and you made a tray for cheeseburger. Guess what? You should bury it. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Thanks to you guys, I'm learning things all the time. And ordinary animals that were slaughtered in the temple courtyard, it is forbidden to benefit from the meat of such animals. And he said all of the above should be buried. 12. When a person weaves the full length of a sit is a measurement. If you look in the notes, there's different opinions as to how much it is.
Early projects, and so therefore our experience of it. So to get that kind of feedback from the
guys, I don't know where the noise is coming from.
those projects.
I don't like everybody, but you're giving me no choice.
Sorry, Rabbi, sorry.
Just mute yourself if there's noise in your background. A sit is a measurement. So he says it's 2 thumb breadths or something, or 3 thumb breadths. So it's a small measurement, not very big. So if you weave that amount of material from the hair of a Nazarite or a firstborn donkey with a weave of goat's hair, you're not supposed to benefit from it. You have to burn it. If any of the entities that must be buried are burnt instead, which is a mistake, it is then forbidden to benefit from their ashes. What can you do with ashes? But sometimes you could do something with ashes. You could warm yourself or whatever. So it is permitted to benefit from the ashes of all the entities that must be burned, even if they're sacred, with the exception of the ashes of the outer and inner altars and the ashes of the menorah. That you may not benefit from. But if something that was supposed to be buried and you burned it, you should not benefit from the ashes. 14, none of the entities to be burned should be buried, and none of the entities to be buried should be burned. Now, it's more strict to burn something than to bury it. So why can't I be more frum and burn even those that should be buried? So he says, even if it's more stringent to burn it, he's being lenient with regard to the ash. For the ashes of the entities that are buried are forbidden to be benefited from. So you think you're doing a chumrah or something more stringent, but it may turn out that you'll actually transgress. Finally, 15, if a person was offering sacrifices together with a Kohen, and the Kohen told him, I got bad news for you, my friend. The sacrifices became pigul. I had the wrong thoughts when I did it. Or if he was involved with entities that are ritually pure with a person, and the guy told him they became Tomei. His word is accepted. We don't suspect a Jew of lying in such an instance. However, if he told him the sacrifices which I offered for you on this and this day, yesterday or the day before, became pigul, or those pure aja became impure, different rules apply. Now we're not so sure. It's like, why is he coming so late? We're now a bit suspicious. Maybe he's trying to, maybe he has a faribel with him. He's trying to make his life more difficult. So if the person is one whom he trusts, then he should rely on his word. But if he's a bit skeptical about the guy, he's a bit dodgy, then he does not need to be relied upon. However, one who wishes to be stringent is praiseworthy. Since there's an element of doubt involved, you want to be more frum and not take any chances, God bless you. Blessed be the merciful one who grants assistance and helps us conclude the chapter of the Psulei HaMukdoshin, sacred meats, etc., that become disqualified. Question number 1, may nota be burnt on Shabbos or the festivals? I gave you the answer already.
No.
Thank you. When is nota burned?
Only by day.
Thank you, only by day. May impure meat and notar meat be burned together?
Yes.
Did we do that? I don't even remember doing that.
Yeah, they can be burnt together.
Okay, thank you. And this last halacha, may a sacrificial entity that was meant to be buried be burnt instead?
No.
No.
We
No.
said no. Even though you think you're being frum, we said no. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Okay,
Bye, everyone.
tomorrow
Thank
will
you,
be
Rabbi.
more interesting stuff. Tomorrow you do the laws of Yom Kippur, which you'll enjoy more than this subject, I'm sure. So all the best.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.